Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Ellen. So today I thought I'd play around with the new sketchbook that I was gifted by Etchr and to see if I like it. It's their perfect sketchbook in a 6x8 and I'm going to be painting a Japanese, garden scene. I gave you a reference photo in the description. You can see it while I'm painting it side by side. Patreon members get the reference photo and the traceable. So go check on that if you're a Patreon member. If you want to be a Patreon member, click in the box and description box and click the link to join. So we're going to go step by step and how I would just tackle something like this using a larger brush, a loose brush, using a liner brush. If you ever tried a liner brush, try a liner brush. They're perfect for tree branches, etc. And to let you know my thoughts on painting in this sketchbook, I think it holds up pretty well. So without further ado, let's get started. All right, so I'm just going to be playing with this new sketchbook that I received from Etchr. It's the perfect sketchbook. It's a 6x8. It's 100% cotton cold press. It's heavy duty paper. I like the quality of the paper. I haven't started yet, obviously, but my only issue is that I'm not fond of this size. I like an 8x8 sketchbook. Would have loved that kind of size to bring with me to my travels. So, but we're going to play with this today, just for the heck of it. I already drew in my picture here, and if you're a Patreon member, you get the trace to follow along. If you're not a Patreon member, I also link the photograph that I used of it looks like a Japanese garden. It's kind of perfect scenario for springtime. I thought I'd just do something springy and with a little water here. They don't really have much reflection. There's some reflection of the rocks and the greens. You kind of can't tell. It kind of looks like a reflection. So we're going to play with that, and I'm going to change it up a little bit. So, you tackle whatever you want to tackle first. If you want to tackle the green, if you're going to do beautiful floral trees, you want to paint those first and then the green around them, or you're going to mask it in because the green is going to make mud. It's going to make brown if you're painting pink. And I'll be using bright rose from Holbein for that and different colors. And I'm still going to be using always a bigger brush. I wouldn't use a 16 on this, but I would use a 12. And I might start with painting in some of the water first. And it kind of has a deeper color, little greens, little blues. I wouldn't use a turquoise. I have ultramarine blue here. I could play with adding some peacock blue to that. Get a little bit different color tones, kind of moving around in here. And it's in a sketchbook. You don't have to paint something fantastical in a sketchbook. It's up to you. And it's Prussian blue. If I don't really use Prussian blue for water, I would use ultramarine blue, peacock blue. You want to use a turquoise, add a little bit of yellow, more green tones. We'll just play around with those colors and see how we like them. So here we go. Let's test out this book. I'm going in. I'm just going to fill this in a little bit. It is a bright blue, and I don't mind it being that bright. I can play around with adding in some other color tones too. There's a little green section in here. The reflection. And I'm just going to do the blue first. We can add some of the green and grays as we go along. And remember, it's just a sketchbook, so you do a lovely little sketch. You're just going in and just going to loosely paint it in. Don't be using like these tiny little brushes on this stuff. Get in here and use a big brush. I got my blue on my rock. I don't really like that, but it's going to turn gray anyway. And I already got some yellow paint right here. So, oops, mistake already. But that's the beauty. It's a sketchbook and nobody really cares. So it's doing okay. It's not going to be like arch paper, It's just not going to be. None of these sketchbooks are. You have to actually make your own arch paper. I am a lucky person that I was fortunate enough to be gifted a lovely sketchbook made from arch paper. Yes, so I was gifted this lovely sketchbook by a someone who came to my retreat in Tuscany named Andy. And if you're watching, Andy, hello, and thank you so much. And I painted some stuff from the Borghese Gardens and Rome in it. So, love this. And it's all art. She made this book. It's fantastic. I'm sure you can find Google ways to make your own sketchbook from arch paper online. It's probably time consuming, so I love that book. I'll be taking that with me. Because it's from arch paper. So, sketchbooks are tricky. See how it kind of goes like this? You want to take a clip. I have a big clip. I clip it down so it doesn't kind of move up. move down, all that good stuff. The problem with the clip too, though, is you're painting around it, and I don't like that either. So, hello, come on, clip. Ugh. See what I'm saying? The struggles. Now I'll hold it down better, and we'll be kind of lifting off the paper. We'll have to kind of fill that in afterwards. So there's our water. We're going to move that. Just have to do the first wash of that water in. We'll come back to that. I'm going to start to play with some greens that we see here and the beautiful, lovely cherry blossom trees. So I'm going to just take some holbein. This is bright rose color. Now you can take it right out of the tube like this. I'll add a little cadmium red light to it. So just get this nice rosy color instead of like a bright, crazy pink. And make more of a rosy pink. And I'm just going to take my brush and do like little tippy taps where the lovely little cherry blossoms are. And you can tap, if it's too dark, you can just tap some of that watercolor off, or see, take this like a sponge and kind of move it around your paper. And just kind of, that's why I like the bigger brush. You see, just kind of tapping, moving around fast. You can push down too, pushing down on the brush. It's going to help. Little ones out here. And you're going to have to paint around that lovely little cherry blossom. And you're like, what? What is she talking about? This is what I'm saying. It's a sketch. It's not some serious picture. It's just a light picture. But you got to paint the pink first. Because if you don't, what will happen is it's going to get muddy trying to paint over the green. It's not like acrylic or oil paint. Watercolor, you have to go light to dark. And that's the trick of it all. You could mask in all this lovely, you can take a paintbrush and do the same thing I'm doing here with masking fluid and do the tippy taps and all that good stuff. And then go in and paint your greens. But it's, you know, you're not using masking fluid if you're sitting out there and you're doing some urban sketching and you're seeing these lovely little cherry trees. You're just not doing it. So I'll just do that part. Call it a day. Remove. And make some greens. You know, I like to mix my greens. People buy the greens, go right ahead. But mixing greens looks a little more natural. Got yellow and some Prussian blue. Get a nice medium color green. There's a chartreusey, really bright yellowish kind of. I'll add a little burnt umber to it too. Over here. So we'll play with these different colors, right? So I'm still using this brush. I'm gonna just like nice little wiggle of the grasses in between these rocks that are happening in this chartreusey color. Just over here. There's a little brown in there. This is a sketch, remember. This is what I'm saying. Use the Dig 12. It has a great point to it. Neptune series is great. Floppy, loose. A lot of people get intimidated by painting with big brushes, but don't. So here I'm going around. Just go move around the paper where you see all these lovely bright chartreuse colors. And I'm moving around. You squint your eye. It helps a lot. And so there's a little bright green. Add a little more Prussian blue. Behind this lovely cherry blossom tree. You kind of want to wait till it dries a little bit. So you're going to move around the paper here. I'm going to get more of a medium green. Adding some more Prussian blue. A little thicker here. Kind of going around the rocks. Again, it's just a loose picture. Just moving around the paper and the rocks. Gonna grab the more medium green again. Okay, so now I think this is pretty dry. I can kind of fill it in between. See how I'm just kind of moving the paint around the lovely pink that we did. And you're still using this big old brush. Challenge yourself to use a big old brush. And you're going to have to go in between these lovely little pink blooms. Now I have this like kind of fuzzy Japanese tree. It's kind of like a lollipop tree. I'm just going to wiggle my paint. And I'll make that more solid. Again, this is just, you know, a sketch. I'm going to go in here and add my greens. There's some like just medium type green here. Just a big shape. You can fill in this big shape. You don't have to do every little nook and cranny of darks and lights. I'm just going to kind of fill in this big shape that we see in this medium green under my little clip, right? And that same green is kind of slightly happening over here, that medium green. And then here you see just a bunch of grasses. You're going to work in between some of these medium greens, later greens, darker greens. Go around the rocks. I'm adding in later greens back here. So it's kind of patchworky, but doable. And when you're using a bigger brush like this, you kind of forced just be loose. Going in here, adding this chartreuse color, and back in here. Filling in between the tree. The dark brown isn't going to be a problem with that tree. Same thing up here. There is like a little, looks like a little house that's gray, but I'm just filling all this stuff in. And you can see some pink happening. I mixed some pink with the green, so it's like a brownish red over here. Maybe add a little more of that lovely little pinky color. It is brighter than that. I don't want to get too technical, but play around with adding a little pink in here, taps of it in between some of these little rocks, etc., etc. And there's some more kind of a light pink kind of cranberry thing happening over in here too. Just filling it all in. Underneath the bridge, it's more of a deep dark green. So we just add more Prussian blue. We add some burnt umber. I'm mixing up the colors here, sorry. And the bridge is gray. Here I'm going, sometimes people say, don't go dark so soon. Sometimes you can kind of play around with that and do that. Don't be afraid to break the rules. The rules are made to be broken, as they say. And now I'm going with some darker green tones around some of these rocks. And around here. And the grass. Still using this big old brush. With the darker green, we can kind of play with this area here. We can kind of mush in some darker tones. To give it some more nuance and just one big wash of color. So I just kind of went like this. And I'll go back in and fill in some of these areas again around the rocks with the green. And a much lighter green back here. Now, it doesn't have to look perfect like the picture. It just has to have the same essence of it. I'm just filling this in. Now we've got a bunch of greens back here in the in the back. Ooh, feeling good today. Just kind of wiggling some tree kind of shapes here, right? Kind of puffy, dark greens. So again, it's the same colors that we mixed before, just a little bit, I'm going to a little more burnt umber back here. Just big shapes. Squint your eye and you'll see some big, dark green shapes. I have to mix up some more color. It was just not dark enough, and that's a little too blue. Just back here, you'll see the dark colors of those trees, right? Happening in between this lovely little cherry blossom tree. Kind of a negative effect painting. And you don't have to paint all that to go up to the top. Do you know that? It's your sketchbook. You can just stop right there. And I think that's what I'm going to do. It's more interesting. I don't want to go all the way to the top. I don't have to go all the way to the top. Who said I have to go all the way to the top? See, I'm just going to go up here. And that's going to be the edge of my picture. That makes it a little bit more interesting. So it's kind of like an unfinished picture. And I'm not going to add a sky. And I don't mind it, right? I'm going to go in here and add some green in between my lovely little cherry blossom. There's a roof that's dark. There's a roof that's gray here. You can just omit the roof if you didn't like it. Again, adding in some bright yellow green back here. I will add the roof though. Okay, and the bridge will have some greens because it's open bridge in between them. Still using this brush. I'm just going to fill in. A little trick too, by the way. So you have like these areas that are dark and light kind of happening in here. You can just, once it's right, kind of just go over them with one color and it will fill them in nicely. It's a little trick. And some bright color here. If you want to add a little brown tones, I'm just grabbing some burnt sienna, kind of play around with putting some grasses like that, wisping it in. Again with this big old brush, some burnt sienna and this chartreusey color kind of happening. You can take a little bit of that olivey green and kind of wiggle it under these rocks because remember it's reflecting a little of this. Leave a little space and it goes across here. See, we're getting there. All right, now we'll start to play with some of the rocks. I mixed ultramarine blue with some burnt sienna to get a nice gray, and I'll start to play with keeping the white as the light where the sun is shining on it and going and adding the gray tones on the bottom half that you see in the photograph. And this one has kind of grays all in here. And this one too. Now if it's not dark enough, you can always go back over for another little pass. Some of the rocks actually more gray on the bottom here. You can keep them very, very light gray. I'm going to just keep them more white. And go add in the shadows. If you want a little bit darker, obviously use the same paint colors but thicker. What do I mean by thicker? Less water. Mixing this up, see? And it'll get darker still. So we've got some rock formations happening back here. Don't be afraid to go a little bold with some of your colors. Dark and light. It's a little too brown. I'm going to add more blue. So this one's the rock formation. Get a little bit darker still. On the bottom, just squint your eye and see where all the little darks and lights are on your rocks. And it's definitely going to be brighter on top. And I'll go in here and add a couple more layers of dark and light. The light gray roof, just put in that light gray color. Back here, maybe mine's a little bit darker. And of course the bridge. Now the bridge I might make a little bit darker and we want it to stand out a little more. So thicker paint, more blue. And I'm just going to fill this in. I am still using this big old brush. It's a challenge. It's a nice challenge actually. There's the bridge. There's the roof. I put a little bit dark color under here. You can't really see that, but I'm just going to add that. And adding some dark colors under the bridge. And then you can see the little, I mean, you want to get super detailed little rocks. Add some dark dimension to those. And even darker on the bottom. Almost like black. So very, very thick paint. Hardly any water. Some of these down here, right? This little rock here, here, a couple little doodads on some of these. Those are our rocks. I mean, they're not going to be perfect. And I've got some dark green happening here. I'll go in here and wisp in some dark green grasses. Grab some yellow, get some medium green. You start to do the details, even with this big old brush. I'm going to have to fill in some of those rocks there so they kind of stand out. This one's a little bit dark down here. You just gotta squint and see where you're missing, the holes that you're missing, right? You can even add some darker colors to this little lollipop kind of Japanese tree here, and fill in between the tree here. All right, at this point, I will get a smaller brush to do the twigs. I mean, yeah. I love a good liner brush. I use this one from Umbria. Princeton. It's called the Umbria series, liner number 4. There's a whole bunch of liner brushes and some of the Princeton lines. So this one I just happen to have. And I'm mixing the same colors, getting a little bit thicker, darker, a deep gray. And I'll start to use this for my tree. And why do I like the liner brush? It makes really good branches. You kind of go up and kind of twist out. Just lends itself to making really great branches. So you're going in here for your lovely little cherry blossom at the trunk. Little branches coming out here. And again, it's just a sketch. It's not like, if it doesn't look exactly like the picture, it's not a big deal. I do this little very jerky kind of movement that helps the twig. So I'll put the thing up here and twig it out. And if it's not perfectly like the photograph, it's not a big deal. I tell you all the time, stop worrying about if it looks like it's supposed to look in the photograph. Some of my favorite paintings that I see some of the painters do, you guys that are come on my Facebook page, Patreons, look nothing like the photograph. It's actually so much better. I'm just shocked and amazed at some of the things that people do that come out fantastic. And they don't think so, which is hilarious. Got to give yourself more credit than that. So I'm adding in some more branches in this. Wiggling over here. And getting a little funky with the branches, and I don't mind. Spring trees. Liner brush. Play with it. You can play with it for the grasses. Wiggle. I've used this brush to outline things, so go outline the rocks. You can make this more sketchy by outlining things. Come in here and kind of wiggle it for grass. I know I'm using the brown, but I can go and grab this dark green and kind of go like this. Play with this. It doesn't really have that kind of grass in the picture, but I'm going to play with it and do that. I really love playing with a liner brush. Get some really great movement out of it. Wiggle. Wiggle for the grasses. I'll add some deeper color in here. And why not? And go in here down below. You put that nice dark color behind that rock and it really pops. See? Putting a nice deep green. A little of that color we used for the twigs in here. I'm adding my own grasses. It's like a white space right there. Maybe I'll add more yellow. And it's going to pop. Still playing with the liner brush because I just really enjoy it. So I'm going to go around here and add some green around this rock. There was some white that was supposed to happen here. Maybe that's what I did. I painted over it. So if that happens to you, I find that this, obviously Arch is more forgiving, but this paper isn't. So I realized I painted over my rock with this green right here. I'm going to see if I can do some lifting and remove it. It's working a little bit. And take a paper towel. Yeah, it worked. Great. So we're near the end of our session here. We're going to grab some the blues, make some more deeper blues again to go on top. And I'm going to mix up some greens to do reflection. So we have this reflection happening here. You just kind of wiggle. This is like going over your painting that you already did. We're not going to do, the series blending reflection. I'm going to wiggle this. Wiggle. Going down. Reflect that. and add some bright yellow for the grass. Just like right there. Going across. And then I'll take my blues that I mixed up, which is the same thing I had before. The blue, ultramarine blue, peacock blue. I liked it bright. And I can add a little brown or something to make it a little bit deeper if I want to do that. Change it up. So here we go. Back here will be a little deeper, and I'll take this and I'm just kind of wiggling my brush. Getting those little lines. Getting a little bit deeper. Going over these. Going over here. Pulling out little squiggles. A little bit deeper. So the color is going to get much deeper now. That was really light. And leave some of that light color around the areas, and it's going to get darker. Over here, I'm going to go over that green, over that green, and dry brush. Look at that. Not around the rock, but around everywhere else. Isn't that pretty? Another little more bright ultramarine blue. Kind of go across in here. And that rock's going to stand out. A little more blue, a little thicker. Oops. Back in here. Play around with your blues on this. I'm leaving it really light back here, as you see in the photograph. And adding a little more lines down here. Don't want to do too many of that. And there's our water. It's a lot deeper here. If you really wanted to make it really somewhat realistic, you can kind of go in here and just go fill this in with the blue. It's up to you. And that's pretty much it. I might go in and fill in some of these green areas in between my lovely little cherry blossoms. But you get the details. You get the gist of this, how this all came about. Playing in your sketchbook, using a big brush. Try the liner brush, one of my faves. Filling this all in now at this point. Doing little details, adding in some greenery around this tree and here. And there you go. So I hope you enjoy this. Stick around if you're a Patreon member for a little extension of this. And yeah, if you want to be a Patreon member, click the link in the description box. And you'll learn all about what each level is about Patreon. So thank you guys for stopping by, and I hope you enjoy this little spring tutorial on a sketchbook. And so my consensus of this book, is that it's pretty good. I just don't like the size. That's the only complaint. So yeah, take care, and I'll speak to you soon.